So let's start. Good morning, bom dia, buenos dias. Very pleased to be with you all here. So we have great authors, great works to present and to have dialogue about today. My name is Alexandre. I'm Alexandre Trindade. Alex, you can call me Alex. Good morning, bom dia, buenos dias. Sorry, that is on YouTube here. I'm part of the collective who is organized, Clarec, who is organized this event today. I'm a PhD student at the Faculty of Education at the University of Cambridge. Rocio is with me today. She is also part of Clarec. And so I'm going to briefly describe myself, and would be nice if you, before you present your work, like just to describe, to make this event not more accessible. We are also having the transcripts in your screen, so to facilitate other people to assess what we are doing today. So I'm a white man with short hair that is getting a little gray in recent times, sitting in a sofa in a room with curtains behind me, and wearing a dark red t-shirt with navy blue jacket. So thank you very much for being here today. Me and Rocio and Julian is going to join shortly, are going to mediate this moment today. And I don't know if you have seen the schedule of the program of the conference. We have different moments, different spaces during this week. And one of them is the working group that we are going to have today. That is more to present works. And at the end, we are going to promote some dialogue. And it's what we are trying to build here is spaces that have like an exchange of ideas, thoughts, questions. So feel free to ask other authors what you are curious to know more about, and also to make connections with between your work and the other authors' work. But we have like other spaces that are more focused on more dialogue, like open conversations or cycle tables. I'm just going to mention that we are recording and broadcasting on YouTube this event today. And today we are going to have some authors who are going to present their work. And after all the presentations, we are going to have a moment that we should be like at least 1 hour to have like more questions and conversations about what you are present today. So we are going to ask you to keep on time, like we have 10 minutes for each presentation. We know that is not enough, and sometimes it's a bit frustrated because so great works, researches, ideas that we would like to have more time, but we would like to have more time also in the end to have a conversation. And we have been saying that we have other spaces during the conference that would be nice to, if you can join and keep going those conversations. So we have also Maida here. This conference is organized by Clarec, our collective, but with the many other partners, and one of them is Universidade Emancipa, who was a huge partner since last year. We are built this together, this whole conference, and Maida is in Cambridge also now with us. And yeah, but it's not only these two groups who are organized. The authors from the conference last year became like organized this year, and that's the spirit that we like to have in this. That we have been saying that is a popular education conference. That would be a space that we could have authors taking like protagonism also in this space, and also in new space that we are going to create from here. So thank you very much for being part of this this project, this Popular Educate project that we are creating together with the organizers and together with the participants. I'm going to pass to Rocio just to introduce herself, and Maida, please, to say hello.
Okay, very briefly. Yeah, hello, I'm Rocio. I'm from Chile and from Clarec as well. I'm a brown woman. I'm sitting, I have my plants in the window. It's a very great day today in Cambridge. It's raining, but it's very warm to be here with you all. Thank you.
Maida.
Hello there, good morning. Yeah, actually good morning for everyone. I'm Maíra, I'm from Universidade de Emancipa and also State University of Santa Cruz in Ilhéus, Bahia, and I'm so happy to join you. I'm a white-skinned woman with brown, long, curly hair, and I'm wearing a red blouse.
And I know Juliana is here. So stay, see if you can open your, or if not, just...
Okay. Can you hear? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Juliana. It's hard to see me, but I'm a white woman. I wear glasses. I have my hair up and headphones. And I'm from Clarec. And I'm really happy to see you here and have a good time.
Thank you, Juliana, Rocio, Maida. So I was also waiting for people to join. So we have more participants now and people on YouTube. And now we are going to start with your presentations. I'm going to follow the list I have here. It was in a different piece. Okay. So we are going to start with Denise Castro de Castro. If you are here, Denise. No, if you joined.
It seems she's not here.
Okay. Let's start with Boyana. The floor is yours. Boyana is going to talk about her work, which is Transformative Potential of Biographical Legacy of the Community Engaged Learning in Higher Education. So thank you very much, Boyana. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Alex, and all the crew behind the scene of the conference. I'll just start following your own introductions, although I must admit I've never experienced such an introduction. This is why I want to be part of it. It's going to be my first time to present myself sort of publicly in a conference as a woman of white skin coming from Croatia. So the Mediterranean sun, you know, does its own work and play around with colors. I have also curly, quite long black hair that you cannot see right now because it's put up almost up in the air. I'm associate professor working at a Department of Education, actually Department of Pedagogy, at a University of Rijeka in Croatia. And for the past 16 years now, 17, I've been quite engaged in research work and teaching in different kind of institutional processes and policies that are related with the concept of an engaged university. So I'm trying to integrate community engaged learning in my own teaching, but I am doing a research as well on different kind of engaged pedagogies, engaged practices that are related with the university setting. I prepared quite a short presentation, just a couple of slides, sort of more as a food for thought than presenting the whole research result. But if you're interested in, you know, you can always contact me later on and I can share different kind of papers and presentations. So give me just a second here. Let me know if you can see it, if it's okay. So this is the title. Thank you. This is the title of the presentation I'm gonna share with you today. And it's related with quite a recent research that I did at a university where I'm actually working as well, where a new elective course called Gender, Sexuality, Identities from Oppression to Equality was introduced as a new educational intervention at the Department of Cultural Studies. What's important to know from the sort of national contextual perspective is that the community engaged pedagogy as such is quite a novelty in our national higher education landscape. And in addition to that, a course targeting these subjects are also a rarity within our own national higher education landscape. So this was an educational intervention on sort of several levels, targeting not only the subject of itself, but also the pedagogy that the group of teachers and NGOs decided to work on. The whole course has been a result of a very long partnership relationship between our higher education institution and 3 different NGOs that are locally rooted NGOs. The idea of this course was to integrate community engaged pedagogy principles of creating a new community of learning within a local community as such. So they developed 6 mentoring programs that were run by the NGOs and by the Department of Cultural Studies. This course was seen as what we like to call like transgressive interspace in an otherwise very, very traditional higher education teaching field. And what I did is I really wanted to dig more in depth into the transformative potential of such a course, right? So new course, everything was going on for the first time for our higher education institution, for NGOs, for students. So it was a total novelty in our context. And this is why I decided to lean more within the theoretical framework and to start and to see whether this course does have attributes of a liminal space, of a liminal phase, of a liminal situation with that, transformative potential, not only for the learning as such, but for the habitus change as well. And I'll just dive briefly into these particularities and not going to bother you with a whole research framework. But what I really wanted to do is to lean on the Turner's concept of liminality and particularly Crossley's radical habitus. The thing is that I think that we might all agree, on the issue that Bourdieu's concept of habitus and including the Mesureau's theory of transformative learning that were part of the analytical framework, but they're kind of fruitful, to anchor this kind of research within. But so far, I haven't been able to find a research work and a paper that was focused on the community engaged learning and, teaching and learning pedagogy, also known as service learning, that follows this Turner's concept of liminality. And this is what I wanted to research. So sort of just to briefly share for maybe those who are not familiar with the concept, the liminal phase is a phase that has few or no characteristics, no attributes of the previous and of the next phase that comes after. So it's sort of a state in between, as Turner says. It's the state of interspace in which one person or a collective passes from one experience to another. And usually in liminal space and time, individuals are deprived of their usual identity, right? And they are being on the verge of personal or social transformation if we are talking about collective. And so far, there have been really, really interesting papers using this concept of liminality, but mostly connecting it with social protests, including student protests as well. And I really wanted to see whether a certain course integrated with within quite traditional higher education context can play this role of a liminal phase, that would put our students in between, because all the courses that they had listened so far, so before this course and after that course, were part of that traditional higher educational landscape. This course was something completely new for all the students that enrolled this course. And I'll just sort of skip all of the steps in between and jump to the very end of it. Sorry for the coughing. To discuss just some of the research results and share with you some of the students' thoughts, and sort of to share with you their own voices. So what this research showed us is that there was a spectrum of new competencies that students experienced as a change of directly being part of this course. In addition, the research showed that all of the students experienced something that they called new me, like new I or another I, also as an experience change of participating within this course. And what I was quite interested in was to see how their habitus kind of got constructed, deconstructed, changed, redesigned. And I wanted to see whether their post-course, right, habitus are those of empowerment and change, or disappointment and status quo. And you can see just by the quotes here that this particular setup of new course based on community engaged pedagogy was really transformative for our students. A lot of their voices were echoing even the emancipatory moment. A lot of them experienced not only personal change for themselves, but for a lot of people within their networks, either roommates, parents, brothers and sisters, or even grandmas, because there were a lot of students discussing how their own intermediate family and circle of friends are not tolerant enough. Some of the students even discussed that their friends are like hardcore anti-gay friends, that their parents have really, really crazy attitudes, that their grandmothers are not in a position to understand, the new world. So a lot of students were experiencing not only a personal change, but they put out a new missions for themselves to influence their own intermediate surrounding, meaning all those anti-gay friends or family members, or those grandmas that were not able to understand the new world. And you can see just some of the quotes here, like, I really feel a lot smarter after this course. Really, before enrolling, I was very ignorant. Now I feel completely different. Or again, I feel completely different after this course. Or I'd like to describe this course as a silent revolution that awakened in us all a desire to become loud. I had no idea that enrolling in this course would be one of my better life decisions. It was turbulent, but I think we all met spheres of ourselves that we did not even know existed. I really feel like a better person after this course. I feel like another I has grown. And now kind of leaning on the Crossley's radical habitus, which explains the students' sort of tendency to continue to be active, to continue their own activism within the local community. I think this quote also portrays, this student's mindset quite well, saying what we started here needs to continue, but we need to continue in some other forms. And I think it's our necessity now to see and figure out how we can continue this meaningful engagement in our lives. And knowing that all of those students who participated in this elective course are coming from different disciplinary backgrounds, I think made this research results even more important because it really showed the interspace, this space and time in between that can be so transformative regardless of the disciplinary area that students were coming from to this particular course. So this is it. This is where I'd like to end my slides, and I will stop sharing at this point. But I would like to open up a floor, of course, later on for discussion, particularly if there are people among you who have been researching the concept of liminality, because it is something that I kind of just started to do and would very much appreciate your feedback, your experience. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Boyana. Very interesting. I'm start like thinking one question, not only for you, but for others also based on what you just presented. Thank you very much. So our next author is a very good friend of Clarek, who is here today, very early in Brazil. Sérgio, are you there?
Hi. Nice to see you again.
Yeah.
I can share the screen directly.
I can just say something before.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Because, yeah, I'm responsible for the time. And then I would like to ask you if you are fine if at 8 minutes I say 2 minutes, and then you know that you have 2 minutes to finish. It's fine for you guys?
Thank you, Joe. I forgot to mention that I give you the role to give the bad news. Like, thank you so much, Joe. And yes, it's just to make sure, Boyana, it was very in time, but sometimes you feel like you need this sign. So Sérgio are going to give this sign by Joe. And Sérgio is presenting his work a pedagogy for the oppressed in the age of mass incarceration. So it's a very interesting question. The floor is yours, Sérgio.
Hi, then nice to see you again. And then I will start discussing and thinking about prison as a limit situation of oppression. And then I will discuss quickly the case of Brazil. Brazil is a country that is emblematic for the failure of the reintegration and educational policy in prison. This has contributed to the establishment, preservation, and consolidation of different criminal groups, such as Comando Vermelho and Primeiro Comando da Capital, in different space. And as Freire say, when the education is not liberating, then the education will be the opprimed will be oppress other people. Then in this space, we know that the prison population, similar to the victim of homicide, is primarily composed of young people of African descent, periphery, and favela. And the majority of people in prison have a low level of scholarization. In this space, we can look that we have like a process of mass incarceration of many people get jailed, and overcrowding in the space when the prisoners are like totally overcrowded. In this space, the educational activity are for a few people. Then 10% of the people have access to educational activity, formal education activity, and 1% have access to reading activity or not formal activity in the prison space in Brazil. At the same time, a little part of this population have access to work activity, and the majority of the people do nothing in this space and spend a lot of time in this space. At the same time, the work is not very professionalization, is not working for professionalization, because the majority of these kinds of work is internal work that is not very useful in the outside world of prison. Then in these kinds of situation, I was thinking, what is to be done within this crisis that is not only from Brazil, also if Brazil is emblematic. There are some theoretical reference from the critical criminology that they talk about rethinking what is reintegration inside the prison system. And there are some analysis of Southern criminology, thinking how some experience in the Southern, in the Global South can teach us something as people of Global North, because I'm Italian, and it's a lot of time that I study in Brazil. There are different theoretical reference on education and prison. One of the most important is in the youth in Rio de Janeiro, that is Julião, that it work on adult education based on the pedagogy of the oppressed, adult education in prison. And then it was like my last work, my PhD work, that is like the applied pedagogy of the Association for the Protection and Assistance of Convicted Persons that have a strong Freirean influence. I'm doing analysis of different best practices on education reintegration of prisoners. For doing this, I analyzed the discourse of how this practice presents itself. Then I will analyze the practical implementation, and I compare the experience with the limitation, difference, and similarity. And I'm trying now to contribute to the effort for knowledge transfer between Global South and Global North. In the methodology, I use a document analysis, a short ethnography for understand how the practice work, and not only the discourse, paying attention specifically to the ethical question that arose to doing ethnographic research in prison context, when the big oppression that the people can experience it's very important. I have mapped some of the best practices around the world that step by step I will analyze. And I will talk briefly on the Brazilian experience that I studied my PhD. That is a like experience that's claimed to lower recidivism, at reduce cost, and is an established experience that was awarded also as Social Enterprise of the Year, and is an experience that in the Global South experienced different initiative in the Global North on rethinking the reintegration education of prisoners. We can see this space that was co-built by voluntary educator and prisoner. This is like a prisoner space that they spend 40 days living, sleeping inside, eating with the prisoner. And this space is in Minas Gerais, in Brazil. And this space is also thinked for trying to maintain the relationship. Then this is like the space for intimate visit. This is the educational space, the bibliothèque, and the distance learning space, like the art education inside the prison, and the peer education, that is one of the most important of this space, that there are former prisoners that teach to the prisoner, the actual prisoner, and also actual prisoner that help new prisoner that start to insert himself in this program. This is like the working space also, that we can see that there are like a complex space with things that can be broken, and then they work for preventing violence and discussing a lot. And then they can permit that the prisoner have like these kinds of work space. And the security is one of the most interesting, is important. It's like prison without police, they call, but because there are not internal police or external police, there are like social educator, what they call social educator, and voluntary. And the idea is like to constructing a relationship with the prisoner and not constant menace with violence to the people. Then in this long time, they have co-constructed with prisoner like a methodology that some of the most important and strong point is like participation of community. The education is not only for the prisoner, but at the same time is for the community that have to accept or receive the prisoner that are inside inside this space. The recuperanda ajuda recuperanda, that is like the prisoner helping other prisoner, and they have like a different meeting that are prisoner only meeting when they discuss all the problems that happen inside the prisoner space, and then they can also challenge the administration. And social reintegration center, this is like what they show is like autonomous space that was co-built by voluntary and the prisoner. They try to, with these kinds of experience, they try to break down the oppressive security and challenge with educational activity. They claim to shift from the security of punishment to security of reintegration and education. They offer formal and not formal education activity to available to everyone. There was when I was doing the field work, 40 mates out of 200 were studying at the university. The idea is that education is for all. No one is thinking as irrecoverable. There was like presence of people with over 30-year sentence and who have a disciplinary problem in regular prison. They say that regular prison is like a violent environment, then the people can turn himself violent because of the contest, and then they try to change this.
2
also,
minutes.
There are the professional education with different working activity and the presence of objects that are potentially weapon inside the prisoner contest. But with the discussion, they try to change this kind of the prevent the violence. At the same time, with the informal education empowerment for convicted person is useful to reducing the rigid division between security officer and prisoner. Former prisoners also are now educators inside the space, and there are co-management with inmates, social educator, and former prisoner, and with the prisoner only cell and regime meeting. There are activity all the whole in the whole day. And the idea is to maintain the community little with maximum 200 people. And at the same time, they try to do education of society with the centrality of the unit in the city. Normally, the prisoners are far away. And that this permit the visit of school, judge, politician, technician, and citizen that are the objective of educational activity also. And the testimony of the society, this is one of the most important, is like the people reintegrate himself, at the same time demonstrate that the prisoner can integrate in the society, at the same time the society that the people can stop to violence if they offer opportunity. In the different research to analyze in this space, different prisoners believe in the possibility of social reintegration. APA can be opportunity for social excluded people that start for the first time to study, for example, or to have a formal work in this space. And we can find also a reduction of the stigma. Then quickly, now on the research that I'm doing is like other space that are inspired by Freirean pedagogy with the University of Buenos Aires, that was like built in the social movement. They start to construct space that challenge the violence inside the prisoner system. And then we can see that like the manifestation, they build the syndicate, radio, newspaper, and so on. And actually they challenge the correctional logic inside the prison. At the same time, in the global north, there are like Columbia University, New York, that have started like a program with the idea to educate the future leader of United States of the big problem that represent the mass incarceration of young Afro-descendant people. Then Then in the ongoing consideration, there are like different governance studies that emphasize a shift between state and individual responsibility in prisoner reintegration program into society, but we can observe different experience from the global south that seem to agree with a form of empowerment with element of collectivism associated with broad cultural and political development strategy of the national context. The influence of Paulo Freire is undeniable in these kinds of projects. And this kind of experience acquired in different contexts can be a source of inspiration for perceived reform and construct a constellation of alternatives that can advance toward the abolishment also and overcoming of prison. This seems to be done by multiplying democratic space, improving.
Excuse me.
Yeah, is the last
can
line.
we?
So
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Improving the physical and relational environment, building smile community, caring for training and selection of the staff working in the facility, integration with the territory, and actively involving experts from educational science and university. And then, thank you. Then open is an ontological necessity, as Paulo Freire says. And then the question of detention and social integration cannot simply be delegated or reserved to technicians. Then, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sergio. Apologize. We have to cut sometimes, like to give, but it's amazing work that you have been doing. And thank you so much for sharing. And of course, we are going to have questions and discussions, and you can explain a more like relaxed way, like when we have this question. And
5 o'clock.
It's amazing. Yeah, 5 o'clock. It's a way to wake up. Very good. So thank you so much, and it's amazing to see how popular education can be like with impact and meaningful in this context. So I'm going to pass now to another colleague who is going to present her work, and it's interesting because it's the same context of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, like the same environment, but in a complete different context that popular education come to connect lives, to understand work of, especially work, very strong work in community. So I called Jessica Giuliani Lins de Souza Fernandes, who is going to talk about popular education knowledge production in educational process in 2 Brazilian samba schools. Juliana.
Hi everyone, can I share my screen?
Yes, please.
Are you seeing my screen? Are you hearing me well?
Thank you, Jessica. Yes.
Yeah, okay, nice. I'm really glad to present after Sergio because we both are talking about potentialities of this place, right? And thank you for this opportunity. I'm talking to you from Padua, Italy, but I'm a Brazilian math teacher. And today I'm going to share with you this work called Mathematics, Popular Education, and Knowledge Production, Educational Process in 2 Brazilian Sunday Schools. The work was developed during my master's in education under the supervision of Professors Joana de Passos and Rita de Cássia Pacheco Gonçalves from Universidade Federal de Santa Catarina in Florianópolis, southern Brazil. We have an interdisciplinary and anti-racist research group, Alteritas, where we have a great deal of research that aims to build these bridges between education, social movement, and university. And now we are continuing this work here at University of Padua with the collaboration of Professor Alessio Surian during my PhD, also in education. And I'd like to say that I was born in a favela in Rio de Janeiro, and that's why I chose this research topic. So for the people who are non-Brazilians or unfamiliar with this type of association, a Sunday school is a manifestation of the Brazilian Black movement. So these associations promote the Carnival Parade every year, which is a way of telling stories about the Brazilian Black history and culture, along with their struggles. So, and for that, to send this message, to teach the public about these subjects, They use carnival floats, special costumes, props, and of course, a beautiful and unique samba song. So our purpose with this research was to identify educational process, especially using mathematical knowledge during the creation and production of these artifacts, like floats, props, and costumes. So we asked, how do people learn there? How do people teach and share this knowledge? And more specifically, which mathematical manifestations are in this educational space? And to answer these questions, we chose to discuss the ethnomathematics program. So we dialogue about the work of Ubiratan D'Ambrosio, Paulo Freire, of course, and Arthur Powell. So Professor Ubiratan coined this term ethnomathematics in the 70s, and we can summarize this as a reflection on the arts and techniques of explaining and understanding in different cultural contexts with their specific language and codes. So the idea is to understand math as a human construction, as knowledge that people create with each other and with the world around them. And for that reason, different groups of people produce different types of math. So we support the idea that there's no universal math or universal epistemology. The study was done with 2 sample schools. Both associations are in a region called Maciço do Morro da Cruz. So this region is a mountain range in the middle of the city. There are 16 communities there, 16 favelas, including Mocotó, where the association Protegidos da Princesa is located, and Monte Serra, where Embaixada Copa Lodge is. And this region is very similar to the so-called Little Africa region in Rio de Janeiro, Pequena Africa, where the first Sunday schools in Brazil were born. So we coined that this region is our Little Africa in Florianópolis. This study was inspired by Beatriz D'Ambrosio and Celie Lopez, who encouraged math teachers to act in creative and in subordinate ways in their activities, either at school or in research, with focus on making an ethical and engaged production. So I started to work in these 2 associations, and while I was doing the same work as the participants, I was conducting these conversations and taking pictures to make a kind of logbook of the production. Well, here we have a story told by Mestre Louro, explaining why people call him that, because mestre in Portuguese is master. So he says, I'm known as Mestre Master Louro because I love to teach everyone who visits my workstation. And we can see an example of the educational relationship between the artists. And he also states that there isn't that selfishness of keeping what we learn to ourselves. It's something we must pass on to others. In this narrative, in this situation, we can see how observation is central in this educational process. So the artist Ana Paula says, she learned her skills from always carefully observing how it's done, how it's cut, how it's measured. And she also talks about curiosity, which is so precious to Paulo Freire, right? She says, I've always been very curious to learn this thing. And she learned a lot from her colleague Hudson as well. And here is Hudson. And in this specific activity, measurement accuracy is not a big concern. So, and it doesn't mean that it will not work or it will not be great, but they just don't need to be so precise. So they simplify some measurements using their own body parts and some known estimations, like how Hudson measures a meter of fabric this way, which is quite similar to the yard in the English system, actually. And here we have an example of the process of modeling and cutting the fabric to create the costumes. Sandra is a seamstress who says that this process is slow because of the calculations. So they must calculate how many custom pieces there will be, what's the best use of the fabric, if it will be enough. And she needs to optimize the available fabric, so this available area here, performing some arithmetic and geometric calculations. Well, besides knowing and identifying the school's mathematical practice, we pose this question. So why is this mathematical knowledge constructed in these spaces considered irrelevant? So we reflect on Professor Boaventura de Souza Santos' discussion of the abyssal line, which is an invisible line sustaining all the distinctions between valid and non-valid knowledge, between popular education and university, and even between valid and non-valid lives. So we created this image, this map, to better understand this concept, combining this idea from Boaventura, from university, with a quote from a community leader from Maciço do Morro da Cruz, from this region. So this is Father Wilson Gro, who said, "There appears to be two cities in one. The dividing line is Mauro Ramos Avenue. Our community side is invisible. And so for us, this avenue is one of the abyssal lines we have in Florianópolis." To summarize, here we have some highlights about we could learn from the samba schools, about building these bridges between mathematics, popular education, samba, university. First, as the artist so eloquently put it, to teach just to be patient and humble, and to learn just to be curious and observant. We can see how race, gender, and territory shape the relationships in the samba schools, and what we understand from mathematics as well. That is actually one specific way of doing math, which is white, masculine, urban. And we must appreciate this epistemological diversity. This means different practices, methods, theories, and
2 minutes.
Okay, I'm finishing, thank you. And inventions built for a particular purpose in a particular context. And finally, samba teaches us how to recognize and respect these diverse ways of living, experiencing, doing, understanding mathematics. And yeah, as in times like these, as Sergio also said in his presentation, we have to state the obvious. So, favelado não é bandido. We are not criminals. And yeah, thank you so much for your time and attention. This is our group, Alteritas. It's been an honor to be here with you today. Please feel free to mail me if you want. I'm really open to dialogue. Yeah, muito obrigada. Grazie mille.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Amazing work. Yes, make us think how popular education can construct and can understand life and to connect with very different contexts as compared to the other Sergio's presentation, for example. Thank you. We are going to now to pass to our next guest, author, who is, I'm just checking if Pensal is here. No. Pansal Tamba, who is going to talk about language and cosmovision. It's not here. So we are going to pass to Rachel Farrell, who is going to talk about a theoretical framework for democratic pedagogical partnership in initial teaching education.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so, and you can see me?
Yes, very well.
Good,
I'm going
okay.
to mark you here. So.
Okay. So good morning, everybody. So my name is Rachel Farrell, and I am an assistant professor of initial teacher education in the School of Education in UCD. And on my screen at the moment is just a shot of the campus, UCD campus, where we're surrounded by the lovely Wicklow Mountains, and the campus has been developed over the last few years to have some nice kind of green landscapes as well. So it's a very nice campus to work on. So I'm going to talk to you about the theoretical framework that underpinned my PhD by thesis or by publication, and which was entitled Democratic Pedagogical Partnerships in Initial Teacher Education. So on the screen is just a screenshot of the lovely image for the conference, which is a really lovely image of Paulo Freire himself. So just very briefly, just to put in context the theoretical framework, I finished my PhD last year, and it was a PhD by publication, and I completed it in 3 phases. And my research really involved my student teachers that I work with, and the extended team that works with me on the Professional Master of Education program in UCD. So the first piece was a qualitative case study of the role of technology in initial teacher education, where some of my student teachers worked with me on a project. The second part then looked at the various degrees of partnership between the university and schools that take on teachers on placement. And then the last part of the publications was looking at how we can actually bring all we know about working together so that we have a sustainable pedagogy for a very uncertain future that we are facing. So that's kind of the context of the PhD. And the PhD culminated then in these 5 papers here. So some of the things I'm going to discuss in the next 8 minutes. If you want to find more information about any of those, most of those publications are open access. And if anybody wants any further information, they can feel free to email me as well. So getting into the theoretical framework, obviously, excuse me, obviously, I was very inspired by certain people when I was starting my teacher education myself. And one of the first people that really inspired me was John Dewey. And his idea of democracy in education really resonated with me. And then when I learned more about Paulo Freire and his pedagogical partnerships, that's something that really struck a chord with me as well. And that all seemed very natural to fit in with the whole idea of Vygotsky's social learning. So they're my 3 big thinkers when it came to my overarching theoretical framework. And their work, for me, is also manifest in the work of Andy Hargreaves in his collaborative professionalism, and also Carrie Smith, who has pioneered partnership in education in Norway. And so looking at all of these ideas, I came up with the idea of democratical pedagogical partnerships. That's what I wanted my focus of my PhD to be on, and looking at that in the context of initial teacher education. So I'm just pulling out some of the ideas from from Dewey that really struck with me. So, you know, he would have been seen as the father of education philosophy. And I just kind of took out a few things I'm going to blend all these, the 3 main thinkers together, that will culminate in a definition of democratic pedagogical partnership. So for me, Dewey's progressive education, the pragmatism side of his work, democratic education, education being child-centered, but also the important role of the teacher. Because sometimes I think in the dialogue around the student being at the center, it seems like the teacher is lost, but there is a very important, obviously the teacher has a massive role to play as a facilitator, observer, providing background information to students, scaffolding, problem solving, inquiry-based learning. And I think that very much ties in with Vygotsky's ideas, you know, really underpin Freire's idea of the banking model of education, and also then Vygotsky's zone of proximal development and scaffolding. And that's why I think that these three key thinkers really inspired my approach to the work that I do. And of course, Dewey, education is preparation for life. Sorry, education is not preparation for life, it's life itself. So going on then to look at the work of Paulo Freire then, that really resonated with me and what I brought into my theoretical framework. You know, obviously his work with adult literacy and the impoverished was very inspiring, and his seminal work on pedagogy of the oppressed. So the three main things that I just wanted to pull out of that really informed my theoretical framework was his critical pedagogy, and that the dialogue among human beings who are equals rather than an oppressive imposition. And I'm bringing that into the teacher education realm as well, that, you know, and even working with student teachers and those student teachers working with their students and placement, that, you know, we want to work in partnership. Everybody brings something different to the table, but we don't want to be working with student teachers, or we don't want our student teachers working with their students in a condescending top-down way. So that's where that critical pedagogy, I'm trying to live that myself in the work I do, and I'm trying to promote that as a philosophy with my student teachers. And also the critical consciousness was very important, that the ability to recognize oppressive social forces shaping society and to take action against them. And I think we're living again in a very critical time with climate change and also with the threats of cybersecurity, that there are oppressive social forces at play with our manipulation through social media and social engineering. We're in a very critical time that this critical consciousness, I think, is something that we have to empower our students with as well in these very, very uncertain times. And also obviously the banking model, that our student teachers and their students, we can learn a lot from them. And my whole work, a lot of the work that I do is working with student teachers and their students in creating curriculum and creating things together so that we can learn from each other. And then of course, that can't be done in a vacuum. And that's why Vygotsky's zone of proximal development is so important, that if you are going to open up learning and sharing with students and student teachers, that it must be done in a way that's structured, and that sometimes they need scaffolding of more knowledgeable others. And sometimes the students themselves can be the more knowledgeable others, and the teacher educator might be the person that needs scaffolding. So I've done a lot of work in the area of reverse mentoring, where student teachers actually may be the experts in certain things that can actually help teacher educators learn more about things. So conflating all those ideas together, you can see at the bottom of the screen is the definition of a democratic pedagogical partnership in initial teacher education is a formal but flexible structure or agreement between all stakeholders, including teacher educators, who engage in collaborative professionalism to improve learning for all students in a variety of contexts through effective pedagogy and practice. And on the screen is just, I suppose, a visual of all the kind of key thinkers and pictures of John Dewey, Paulo Freire and Vygotsky with his family, just showing the kind of that they were the key thinkers in forming this definition. Now my screen is a little bit frozen for a second. Oh yeah, I'm going to skip that one. I'm going to skip on in case my time is kind of running out. I'm listening for the 2 minute. I'm okay for time.
Yeah. I was going to let you know that we have 2 minutes, okay, but
that's fine.
That's fine. Keep going.
Okay. That's fine. I'll wrap it up in 2 minutes. Don't worry. So, so this schematic I have on the screen now is just showing that the work that I do in the university in UCD is all informed by partnership in teacher education. So in the center of the screen is a circle, and at the very top of the circle, that in the work that I do, it's obviously teacher education programs in higher education. So I'm working in the School of Education, but I also do a lot of interdisciplinary work with other faculties across So in the spirit of partnership in education, I work very closely with other disciplines like the School of Economics, where we have a lovely initiative called Young Economist of the Year. We're doing a lot of work on cybersecurity, where we work with the School of Computer Science. So that schematic there really is just, I suppose, to give you some idea that we are living in the spirit of partnership in teacher education in the School of Education in UCD with policymakers, student teachers, industry partners in a variety of different projects. And the one, I'm just going to choose one or two to talk to you in the last 60 seconds. If anybody's interested in seeing more about all of these things, we have a website set up called EduConnect. And this is as part of our academic advising in UCD, where we really want our student teachers to have a very good experience and be involved in, I suppose, shaping the way that their education is facilitated to them. So we invite back our alumni to work with us in the program, and we also showcase many of the outreach projects that we do that are partnership projects. The one that I'm going to leave you with is, that I think is very important, is that we've developed a short course for our junior certificate, which is lower secondary school. So, and again, showing the partnership between teacher educators, government departments, industry specialists, student teachers and students. We have all worked together as a team in developing a new course on cybersecurity because of the threats of cybersecurity and because of the social engineering that is going on at the moment. It is likely to be the next pandemic after the coronavirus. A cyber pandemic is probably imminent. So we are helping our government of Ireland through the Department of the Environment, Climate and Communications. We're helping them to develop education at various different levels across the system. But the one that has taken most shape so far is our work on cybersecurity, and that's available at cyberwise.ie. So I suppose, just to finish up, that the research that I am doing and my theoretical framework, they all have a very practical application that we want them to manifest in curriculum that have meaning for people, that have been co-created, but that will improve people's lives in a very uncertain world. So that's, I'll finish on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Very into this work. And I was thinking how you connect like the profound reflection on theory and thoughts with something like very practical, how popular education is very difficult to talk about popular education and Paulo Freire without like make this connection with the real world, right? Thank you very much. And let's keep this conversation just after our next guest, who is Rolf. Rolf is going to present using self-study as a methodology in the pursuit of critical consciousness. The floor is yours, Rolf.
Great, thanks everybody. I just shared my screen. Is it showing for you all? Okay.
Not in the presentation mode.
Yeah.
Now
no?
It's great.
Gotcha.
Oh, yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, I'll say good day to everyone, since we all seem to be at very different times of day. My name is Rolf Straubar. I teach at Texas State University in Texas here in the US. And in the spirit of the conference, I am a white man who I'm currently wearing a red shirt with glasses and long hair that's pulled back at the moment. And yes, I'm going to just dive right in here to make sure to stay on time. So one of the things that really first spoke to me in Freire's writing was how he takes a more common notion in critical theory, the idea of praxis, of kind of the cycle of reflection and action to bring about change, and gives it a really inspirational and aspirational goal, or what he calls critical consciousness. So to bring just in a few citations from some of his early work, where he really delved into this. To Freire, critical consciousness refers to the process in which men, not as recipients, but as knowing subjects, achieve a deepening awareness both of the social cultural reality which shapes their lives and of their capacity to transform that reality. And by connecting critical consciousness with praxis, Freire identifies that this is a process, not just a one-time occurrence. In truth, really a struggle that one is meant to engage with for the rest of one's life. As he mentions in his most famous book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, those who authentically commit themselves to the people must re-examine themselves constantly. So my personal training in terms of discipline, I am an educator, but I also, my university training at both the undergrad and graduate level was in anthropology. And one thing that I was introduced to quite early in a way that I think was helpful to me in my work, both in and outside the classroom, was the idea of autoethnography, or what I more specifically will call self-study. When I talk about self-study, I'm referring to critically analyzing, in terms of the same way we talk about data sources and all kinds of qualitative research, more personal data sources, one's journals, one's ethnographic field notes, one's correspondence, one's personal writings. To take these personal documents, things we might do not for academic reasons, but for personal reasons, but to analyze them through a critically academic lens. And that in so doing, we can not only find some interesting findings for academic writing. I've done a number of studies in my own work that are self-studies that have been published, but also as a way to engage in this Freirean cycle of critical consciousness, to regularly engage in this process of reflection and action, to bring us closer to be more fully human, in Freire's words again. So for the sake of time, I'm only going to share one example of doing this, of citing, and I'm going to be looking here at a piece of my journal that I have analyzed in an article that I'll share in the chat. I analyzed more extensively in this article some time that I spent earlier in my career as an educator, where I worked for an international nonprofit in Mozambique, in a very rural area of Mozambique, where I was living and working in the same building, and often the only people in that building were me and the guard. And we built a relationship. But one thing that I really dig into in this article that I'll put in the chat is, especially being a white man raised with a certain amount of economic privilege and other forms of privilege in the US, suddenly working in Mozambique, there was a lot of unpacked privilege in the way that I approached my relationship with the people I was working with, even despite all forms of goodwill, that in a Freirean, to refer to Freirean language, a lot of oppressor mentality that was governing the way I was doing that work. And so I will read this extract from my journal, and I bring this up mainly as an example of how I go about self-study, which is primarily I take something I have written and I read it through the lens of these three questions to the right. What am I explicitly saying? What have I implicitly communicated that might reveal something about the values governing what I'm doing or how I'm thinking? And what is new to me this time? I say that in the spirit that self-study, this use of self-study to engage in critical consciousness, one can return to the same writings repeatedly and often find new insights. For example, like I said, this is a piece of a journal piece that I have written about academically. So I've spent a fair amount of time with this. And the first time I wrote this was over 15 years ago. The first time I revisited this for academic writing was about 7 years ago. It's an experience I return to fairly regularly when engaging in regular self-study. So again, here I'll read it for the sake of anyone that might not be able to read it. Ricardo is the guard on duty tonight, and a few days ago he asked me if I could look up something for him on the internet, specifically to see if there were any diagrams he could look at about how radios work. I had tried to look up what he'd asked and not had much success, in part because I don't think I'd understood exactly what he was looking for, as I'm hardly an electrician and his request was rather technical. So I asked him to explain for me again exactly what I should look up, but did it pretty brusquely, adding at the end, remember that this is a favor. I'm taking my own time to do this. As soon as I started talking like that, though, I regretted it because I could see how Ricardo closed himself when I did, apologizing, saying he must have gotten a bit too used to our friendly casual relationship, that he'd started asking for things he shouldn't have, basically apologizing for having, and I say this in quotes in the piece, forgotten his place. So there's a lot to unpack in this text, in this just piece from my nightly journal. But to go through these questions, first, what am I explicitly saying? What do I say here? I note my own brusqueness, my own rudeness in this interaction with Ricardo. I note regret for having acted that way. And I also note the social difference between us when language like forgetting his place, and getting too used to a friendly casual relationship as if that should not be an expected thing, given my social position as someone running this nonprofit and his as the guard. So that is what I have explicitly said. And then in the spirit of more critical analysis, or one thing I do in a lot of my other work is more critical discourse analysis, what is implicitly communicated here? The second question. I think one of the main things that comes through to me in analyzing kind of what is implicit in this text is not just that there's a social difference between myself and Ricardo, but that this social difference is not natural, that this is not something that just happens by virtue of the natural world, but that this is a socially constructed separation between us, that this is something that comes out of our difference in social class, which again is socially constructed, and our difference in identity, his as a man from a Black indigenous man from rural Mozambique, and mine as a white man from the US. This third question, what is new to me this time? One thing that I thought was interesting, that what was in revisiting this same piece, I do note some of the social difference between us, and you can tell that I'm bothered by it. But again, this being something that happened relatively early in my educational career, I feel like the language I use to describe social difference here is still a bit too natural. I accepted a bit too freely. To use Freire's terms, in the push to re-examine ourselves constantly, I think I need to re-examine myself a little bit more. So here I use this example, again, this is something I will put 2 articles in the chat where I do this in more detail. But for the sake of presenting this as an idea, something that you and participants can engage with on their own in terms of self-study as a means of pursuing critical consciousness, this is a model of self-study that I have tried to outline, that I continue to use, which is relatively simple, of just taking your own writings, personal writings, and engaging them through the lens of these 3 questions. In that spirit, I think that one of the things that inspires me the most when I revisit Freire's writings is this idea of unfinishedness, this idea that the pursuit of critical consciousness is not just something that I get it and whoop, I'm done, but that we are unfinished characters as human beings. Again, in this quote, the unfinished character of human beings and the transformational character of reality necessitate that education be an ongoing activity. for me, self-study has been a useful and practical way to engage in that as an ongoing activity. And in our discussion, I'd be happy to talk about some ways it might be practical for any of you. But I would encourage some of you to try this. And again, I will put some articles in the chat where I dig into how I've used it a bit more. But that is it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Rolf. Okay. I'm just checking if Stephanie, Denise, or Pansal are around. No, okay. Rolf, thanks so much. Your presentation made me another question that I'm going to take the privilege to be like hosting with this session with Juliana to address to start questions. So we now are having a moment to have dialogue and to open to questions, reflections, comments. So we have something in the chat that Juliana is going to address. But I would like to just to start this conversation with now two questions, like two things that come to my mind looking at your work. One is the Paulo Freire, as everybody you know now in the context of my region, I'm from Brazil, has been hugely attacked all the time, but now mostly now in this moment. And I was thinking about the context that all of you are doing your work, how you feel this situation. Why do you think? Of course, we know why Paulo Freire is attacked in this neoliberal world and like with praise fascism and so I would like your reflections in terms of like how you deal with this. How is to conduct it, especially when you're in the field, how this come to your day life and your work. And the other thing is related to question. No, let's start with this one because maybe we could give more voices to who would like to start this point to relate to resistance and to how to address phrase thoughts and works and practice and in controversy in a very difficult context of anybody would like to start? Maybe Sergio could give like some words, like maybe you are in an environment that it's very threat, and I can imagine when you are going to prisons and doing your work, especially in Brazil, you have to deal with this, how Paulo Freire thought, when you have to explain that you are looking for education that is based on...
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really interesting because when I start my PhD research, my field work, then I come into the prison and I meet like a coordinator of prisoner that was like with Paulo Freire t-shirt. That was like, you know, was like shocking, you know, it was like prison and then the people that have so strong the perspective. And then offshore, the idea of, I think that the idea of overcoming the individualistic point of view of education, then constructing a movement, constructing like a community and a space like the APAC do in Minas Gerais, you know, this kind of co-management prison with prisoner. Then offshore, then I think that he is challenged the Paulo Freire truth because it's not hegemonic. Then he try to, but he structure many space, many movement, and Brazil is really exemplar now. Now, for example, I see a lot of these in the structure of the social movement here in Brazil. For example, the MTST now in São Paulo, that where I militate also, then is really interesting, and we have to learn a lot from Europe on this, on the possibility of the truth to begin movement and to begin to transform itself like in power, because this collective power, counter-hegemonic power. And yeah, sure, it's really interesting. And yeah, thank you.
Yes, Sergio. Any other thoughts in a different context, Rolf?
Yeah, I, as someone who, in addition to Mozambique, I've also worked in Brazil a fair amount and lived there several times over my career. And I thought, I find an interesting parallel in between kind of the conservative reactionary push against Paulo Freire, whether it's the push to remove him as the patron of Brazilian education, or more generally, the pushback against educational work that explicitly cites him or builds on him. It's very parallel to me, I think. I mean, there are many ways in which the political moment in Brazil and the US are parallel, whether it's comparisons between Trump and Bolsonaro and many of kind of the reactionary political movements that they have brought up, between Bolsonaristas and kind of the MAGA faction here in the US. But one that applies directly to education is in the same way that there's been kind of this reactionary push against Freire. It seems very parallel to me. I don't know how many of you have followed this kind of news cycle in the US, but the pushback against what is called critical race theory feels very parallel in terms of it's coming from a very similar reactionary group in politics, and is in very similar ways that the pushback is often based in a very superficial read of the work itself, that it's Marxist or that it's, that it's socialist or whatever, without even really digging much into what Freire has to say or what critical race theorists have to say. I mean, it's a very troubling movement, and one that I think it has many different manifestations, but it does. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing I wanted to bring up, is just that I do see a big parallel there. I don't have a solution. I wish I did, but it is troubling in a parallel way.
Thank you, Rolf. Any other thoughts? If you want to raise your hand using the button, or maybe put in the chat also, or start talking. No. Maida.
Hi, everyone. I'd like to first say I'm very happy to be here and hear all of those amazing works. And I'd like to ask a question for Boiana. I was very interested, especially in these contexts where you said this new course has been implemented in your university. And especially I'm interested in that because, as Rolf has said about critical race theory in the United States, in Brazil, we have these gender persecution. So there was a concerted movement from the extreme right, and with all the support from the government, the federal government, to combat anything that has gender in its title, anything, especially at schools, basic schools, primary, secondary schools, but also at the university. And I'd like to know a little bit about the context and how we can say of what's common in these situations and in Brazil and in Croatia. So if you would please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I'd like to come with better news. No such thing, obviously. I mean, it's quite, this course started in 2020, and it seems quite weird, to talk about, gender-related course as novelty, something no one has done before. But it's true, no one has done it before at the university level, and there are tons of reasons, for that. But it can kind of be connected with the issue that Alex raised as well, right? In terms of like, how to be resilient, how, to keep up with the resistance as well. But obviously there was no critical how do you say, critical, let's say, individuals or collective, you know, at the university level. And there are 7 public universities in Croatia that were, you know, just responsible enough, because I wouldn't say it like brave enough. We are quite privileged within our own positions as, you know, public servant in Croatian higher education context. So I don't think that you need to be particularly brave to, you know, to open up and to work on those, you know, boundaries and to open up space for new courses, new topics, new subjects, new opportunities for students. But in this particular case, it seems that it was in the context of, you know, celebrating such course at our institutional level ended up in a quite different way in a national context. There were a lot of attacks directly towards the professors engaged. I'm not engaged in that course. I was engaged as a researcher. So I wasn't part of what they were going on, but as we know each other, we work at the same faculty, you know, neighboring departments. I've been quite struck with what they have been going on privately in terms of that, you know, there were a lot of things on the side of the critics in terms of like, why do we need NGOs? In like, we are, you know, those who know, we are those who produce knowledge. We don't need, you know, partnerships with NGOs in let alone, you know, allowing them to construct knowledge together with us. So that was one element of the critique. Another, and the you know, the loud one was related with the course, you know, subject as such, gender related, and it's I don't know how familiar you are. Croatia was part of the former Yugoslavia, you know, so the 90s, we had a homeland war. During this kind of birth of a new Croatian national identity was very much related with the rise of the Catholicism and the, you know, rise of the power of the church. And this has been kind of the scenario for the past almost 30 years. And it's really hard to open up what you said, particularly like on the prior levels of education in secondary schools, let alone elementary schools, anything that has to do with something that is not white, Croatian, and Catholic, which is like the norm of a superb Croatian, right? So I am aware that all of my colleagues, both from the university level and those from NGOs, were really having a rough time celebrating their own success while they were attacked, you know, throughout the time. And this is why I thought it was so important for them to do this kind of evaluation research, because I really wanted to boost their impact. I really wanted to boost, you know, everything that they invested into creating such a course, and spending time with students who were really open in sharing their own personal narratives as well, and those of the course and their own transformation. I think that I remember the day when I presented the research result, you know, to the whole team and everything. There were like so many tears going on, you know, around the table. I used so much more creative, qualitative techniques that I haven't even presented now. But for example, students had to write a farewell letters to their mentors in the organization, kind of saying goodbye. And, you know, from those letters, we dig up like so many very personal, emotional stories. And I think that it was funny at the end that the research itself and the research results kind of helped them, you know, keep up the resistance, you know, energy and to sort of keep up with their own resilience as well. I'm sorry if I was kind of too large in answering your question, but I think, yeah, the context need to be sort of pinned from various perspectives. Thank you.
I would like just to extend this question, the question from Maira, to Rachel. I would like to know more about this in Ireland and in your work at the faculty, like the teacher education, and how does this work?
Yeah. So I suppose unlike the lady that was speaking before me, we've a lot of openness now to all, gender dysphoria and all, those kind of things are very open. There's a lot of work being done in the education system to open that up. So that's wouldn't be my main area of focus or concern around the work that I would do with Freire. As I said in my presentation, my main focus is looking at trends facing education that are big things that we need to be, if we want to make an impact as educators, we need to look at the things that are the challenges in education. So, obviously those things, a massive thing is displacement of people because of climate change. And also obviously displacement of people because of the recent war in Ukraine. So we have an influx obviously of Ukrainian people, and we have to, so these kind of challenges that we're facing, we can't work with all of these things on our own. We need to work with other people. We need to we're depending on so many other people now to be able to do our jobs. And that's why I think that the Freire's insights are so important, because it gives us a way to work with people that is recognizing everybody's values and expertise that they bring, but also recognizing that certain people have different expertise at different times, and it's not just handing over total responsibility to any one particular person or party, but you have to find a way of doing that and working together. And that's why the theoretical framework that I spoke about is looking at how we can acknowledge everyone, that I suppose the moral purpose of education and the way that people work together, is, for me, is the focus is making student learning better. So it's a pedagogical partnership. Freire talked a lot about pedagogical partnership, but how does that manifest? It has to manifest in some actual outcomes as well. So, that's why I suppose I'm a very practical, all my research is very, practice orientated. So I do believe that in Ireland, I'm very lucky in the School of Education that I work in, and in the university, they are really, really very open to interdisciplinary, really, really encourage that. And so that's why that kind of, but my colleague there, Sergio, he's working the prisons. I think that's an area that I would be very interested in as well, and I haven't got involved in that very much, but I think that's another area of opening, and that maybe from this event today, that's something that might, my focus is on that now. I had thought about it a lot. There is a prison very near where I live. I did visit that prison as a student myself one time, but I'd love to do more work in that area as well. So that could be an outcome of today's of this event today as well. So thanks very much for that.
I think Sergio is.
Yeah, I was thinking on the impact also on Paulo Freire in the global north. When I was recently in Cambridge in the Institute of Criminology doing a research of one of the best prison in UK, and the University of Cambridge was constructing like a program inside the prison. It was called Learning Together, but now it was shut down. But when I was doing an interview with a former prisoner, he started to talk to me of Paulo Freire. Then like a UK prisoner, then the talk with me with Paulo Freire, because this program was inspired by Paulo Freire also. And it's so interesting, the huge amount of creativity in different contexts that the thinking of Paulo Freire then can develop. For example, also Maira already know the Emancipa in Rio de Janeiro have structured like a program with young adolescents that are jailed someone from the criminal organization that I talk about, and it is like a really interesting program also, because also there are like a huge impact of the hegemony and counter-hegemony that normally in the prison space there are only like evangelic Catholic with a right-wing form of view, and normally it's not disputed. This space is not challenged by like social movement or like more left-wing thinking as Paulo Freire have. And then it's really interesting. This.
Rocio, please.
Thank you. So I was thinking mainly from the first comments, but I think also from these recent conversations about how universities tend to protect themselves when they when they have these attacks, you know, of critical thinking, critical theories, and so on. And it seems to me, thinking on the different spaces where I have lived or know about, that they tend to go back to this figure of we are the university, we are like the knowledge producers, as a way to protect, right, critical theories and so on, and reinforcing this close environment instead of open up, instead of appealing to other rationales and practices as well to do so. And I think it's might be a relevant point to bring here, given the main frame of the conference, which is, you know, like building this bridge between social movements and popular education and the universities. It's more like a comment. Maybe I know that many of you could reflect, or maybe I would love to hear your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Anybody would like to start?
Yeah, totally interesting. The truth is like that. It's like that we have the truth, and then you have to learn. Sometimes we are like epistemological violent. You know, for example, I think that is like very clear to me. Work on gender issue with refugees, with people coming from other different space, then you have to being really, how do you say, not so aggressive that explain that is the truth, but listen and then co-construct the truth with the people. Also in the prison, then you will encounter many people that are really machist, homophobic, and so on, because the social context that where they are built, where they are grow is like this, then is so hard, but it's so necessary to start to try to co-construct the epistemological things with the people that normally are provenient of the periphery and so on. Then it's really interesting, this kind of.
Thank you, Sergio. Rob, would you like to?
Thank you. Rocio, when you were speaking, can you hear me okay? I'm talking closer to my microphone so I don't wake up my kids. I'm in my children's bedroom right now. I think it made me think, because Texas is one of the states in the US that is more conservative as well, and where I'm based right now. And I do think that unfortunately you do get this dynamic that, well, yes, you can find people who are more politically and theoretically aligned with you within universities. And it can become a community of support in that way. I think if we are not careful, it can also reinforce many of the same oppressor-oppressed power binaries and dynamics with the larger community and with the larger society that Freire was warning about, that we reinforce our own sense of superiority, our own sense of we have the answers, and if only all of these silly people that don't think straight or just agree with us, which is contrary very much to the spirit of, at least how I understand Freire, which is to be in community with all people, especially with those that are most marginalized. And I think especially in the spirit of Alexandre's initial comments when he was talking about the political moment of Freire in Brazil and elsewhere, that many of those who are engaged in some of these reactionary political movements are working class people, are people from the most economically marginalized communities, the same ones that Freire spent his life working in. And I think it is very contrary to the spirit of Freire to try and dismiss those groups in, or think of them as, you know, less than us in the Freire spirit of education as an act of reaching our full humanity, to think of them as less human than us. I think these are ways that the university can exacerbate that dynamic if we are not careful. So I appreciate you making that comment.
Thank you, Rolf. We have Sergio with hand.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's interesting, this reflection. I was reflecting on a long time on how we use like term as fascist, racist, and so on, for like some time from like stigmatization, exclude the people that it's like that we forgot some time that we have like economic difference, but also educative difference, a lot of you know, educative difference between the people, and then the people of the most marginalized context and so on, then now switch in the majority of the part to right wing. Actually, you know, we can see this in Italy, we can see in Brazil, in the United States, in the UK. Then it's like you know, it's like a movement, and it seemed that like the left, center left is like more medium class, or like, you know, and then I think that it's really problematic with the people that theoretically we want to stay with, and in the other part, and then and yeah, for sure the claim of the how we communicate, how we stay with the people is really interesting. Also because I was thinking on evangelic people here in Brazil that normally are we can say a lot of things on day, but at the same time they stay in the prison, they are really present in the prison, they are really present in the periphery, then they construct relationship with the most poor and emarginated people. And then for example, the landless movement that I participated, the most of the people are evangelic, and at the same time can fight for the right, but because the movement stay in the periphery and not normally like in the center, how the majority of us stay like in university and so on.
Joe?
This is for Jessica, and it's just because we know the importance of the intersection of subjects, and I'm from arts, and I really appreciate your work in the Escola de Samba, doing the maths, and then this thing about bringing other different knowledges. And when you talked about the mestre, and then the lady who quem costura, and then how they do, how they measure stuff, and it's other knowledge. And then I would like you to talk more about this. And also, how was the challenge to present the project? I don't know if you had like to say, look, we have this intersection. I can do the maths in the Escola de Samba. I would like to hear more about it, please.
Thank you, Juliana. I actually didn't have problems because my advisor is a wonderful woman, and she liked the project at the first time she saw. And I mean, I think I'm hearing all of this discussion. I think also about the Alex questions, and I'm thinking about these bridges between university and social movements. And I really think that the key to all of these questions is about affirmative actions, because we need not only research about these diverse epistemologies, but we need researchers from these different epistemologies. I mean, we need different bodies on the university. We need different realities on the university, and I think this is the key to better build these bridges. And about the math, something I usually hear about my work is that it's not math, because it's too engaged, it's too politic. And what I do is saying, yes, it's not math, because if math is that special and magical thing that no one can access, that only genius people can do, I'm not really interested in this kind of math. I'm not interested in this white and masculine math. I mean, when I say I'm saying our group, we are not interested in this kind of education as well. So I prefer to be this militant, but I think we are really caring about things that are really worth, about life, about the real life, and not this thing I mean, it's not about life, because this magic education, this magic math, is not about the life of the people that we really care about. I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah, I think it.
Yeah, that's great, because it's this kind of thought that we need at schools for our kids to get interested and see that as you said, maths is not the somewhere out there. No, we use it. It's real. It's a real thing. We need this. Thank you. Just Simon, he put something in the chat. He said, just great point there. What knowledge and truths that work to make a more round world can we construct through critical dialogue with those whose views oppose ours? And he says it's a challenge, but important idea. And Simon, again, he said, good, Jessica, it's a human-centered view. He really appreciates that, and I think we all do.
Thank you all for attention, and I'm really glad about that.
Any other comments about Simon's thoughts, reflection?
Jessica, if I had gotten math instruction similar to what you are describing, I think I would have liked math a lot more as a student.
I'd like to address a question for you, all of you. Maybe Jessica also, you could think about this, and looking at what I'm doing in my PhD, that is looking at communities, the relation between communities and university social movements. I'm looking at those space that this kind of bridge and connection can raise, can build transformation. And I'm always looking at Paulo Freire and how we can not objectify what we are looking, what we are researching, but on the other side, you have like the pressure of the educational system, the hegemonic one, like you're looking at, you have to write your thesis, you have to publish things. So it's very difficult to deal with that, because you like to think how you could be part of the research in a way that you transform those people you are researching, those contexts also in a subject, what you are doing. But when you are publish something. No, you have to be the owner of that article. So and after that you have to apply for another funding to go to another research. So and you feel like you're very guilty to not be with them and to not follow what they are doing. So I would like to see how you deal with this, how you can, what kind of advice or learns or understands you have in your life, like doing what you are doing to confront this pressure or to resist what the hegemonic education system try to put us in a box and to fit in that way, to be productive and not like to concern about the transformation that you can pursue in your own research.
I need to leave in a minute, so if it's okay with you, if I can just share a thought on your question. Sorry, Sergio, I saw your hand, but just jumping in. I don't know how many of you here Europeans, right? So you might be very familiar with this knowledge projectification. I don't know how to call it. Everything is about project and project funds and EU funds and all these humongous, processes, evaluations, and you wait even year and a half for a project to be evaluated. Maybe you in the meantime crossed paths with someone or just decided to leave a certain research phenomena and jump onto something else. So it's quite hectic and it's very hard. At least for me, I'm absolutely talking about a personal perspective, to keep up, sort of balancing with all these multifaceted expectations that are out there for us. And I can just finish with like, you gotta fight for your right. So just keep on doing it. I think that me being for so many years in kind of maybe closed field of research is actually an answer to that craziness around, because I think that if I just keep on pushing things from project to project that I am really passionate about, then I see it maybe as a path of me keeping myself, safe and sound on the path that I'm passionate about, not only as a researcher, but as a person as well. I'm so grateful to be part of this conference. This is my first Freirean conference. So I really do hope that I'll continue receiving, info. I marked click to all those sharing infos. So to keep in touch, I shared my presentation. There is my contact as well. Please feel free to write. And I really hope I'll cross, my path will cross with yours in many different ways, not just waiting for another conference. Thank you very much, but I really need to leave. I'm already late to another meeting.
Saving the chat, save the chat for you guys.
Enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Boyana. I think what Boyana was saying is like we need a movement, like we need to be connected and to transform this world and also to put more energy what we are doing in our research, less to the system. So thank you very much, Boyana.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye. Boy, Sergio, please.
Yeah, then I think that normally the people that want to do like the academic work and then militant work normally don't sleep, don't eat, don't, then we are almost all in burnout.
Wake up at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, wake up at 5 o'clock. And then I have another conference inclusive on educational writing the same day in prison. Then it's like, yeah. Then normally the people do like this, but it's not so correct. There are a lot of things that maybe we have tried to challenge the evaluative system and so on, because like extension is not evaluated, like many things that are really important are not evaluated in the report. And maybe we have to do these kinds of work. But I think that at the same time I see that something changed. Then, for example, in Europe, we have like the Marie Curie grant and so on for the postdoctoral application. And there are a part on social impact and so on. Then you can explain why your research is important also for the social impact. Then you know, there are various parts that maybe you can mix, but it's absolutely hard, and it's not Freirean system. They have a evaluation of our work as a researcher, and then yeah, oh sure. Then we are all in burnout, and we have to challenge this also, because, like, you know, there are a lot of research on mental health of researcher, you know. Then we know this. Sometime there was like there was like an article that we shared in the social movement in Italy. It was like the alpha militant, you know, that we are like over discipline ourselves for doing the things that we want to do, but it's not so healthy, definitely.
Thank you, Sergio. Any other thoughts? We are coming to the end of this very interesting session. You know, also people from the audience, if you'd like to open your camera and make questions, reflections, or just suggest a movement that we need, like to change a counter-hegemonic movement. We are trying to do this with like Clarec, Universidade de Macipa, others are joining these conferences, is to challenge the way we think about a conference, for example, how we can transfer the barriers in terms of language, accessibility, to put more voices and not be selected in a way to decide who have to own the way to give a speech or a presentation. So yeah, we need more like engage and to make those connections to start this counter-hegemonic movement in education, because otherwise we are going to kill ourselves and not doing what we really would like to do. So Vitor would like to make a reflection? No? Okay.
No, hi everyone. My English not so good, and I'm just listening and learning. Thank you very much.
Don't worry about that, Vitor. As you could see, my English is not that good as well, but that's the point. I think we have to transport these barriers in terms of language. And thank you for being here with us. And anybody else would like to final thoughts to share? Maybe just a few comments. Rolf and Jessica, you guys are with us. Oh, and Sergio. Jessica would like to.
Unfortunately, I'm thinking about frustration about your question, because it's always this of we are not doing enough. But when I am in these spaces, in spaces like this, I feel like renew, you know, I feel renew again, and I feel I have to continue because we are in the right way or in the left, but we are like doing the right thing, and we are not alone, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I just would like to thank you all, and not only for this specific space, but for all the conference. It's been amazing, and also the lecture groups, the reading groups, actually. So thank you so much. I'm really appreciating all of these activities.
Alex, can I share the invitation for the reading group?
Of course.
As Jessica has mentioned, we are putting up a reading group of Paulo Freire since last year. We started with the pedagogy of the press for the first conference, and then we started other books. We read a trilogy of bell hooks, and Ailton Krenak, 2 books by him, and now we're back to Freire again, and we are reading Extension or Communication. And next Monday will be our meeting. I'll just look for the link to the forms, the Google Forms, where you could get info
and the link for the Zoom meeting to attend in case you're interested in discussing the extensional communication. We're reading chapters 2 and 3. It's a very short book, but very deep book. So I hope that you could join us. It will be wonderful.
Yes, good. This invitation, yes, it's amazing space. Yes, thank you for mentioning that, Jessica. Sometimes we have like so many things to invite to invite that we forget to do that. Thank you. Rolf, would you like to give some thoughts? Final.
Sure. I think this is something I'm working on as well in terms of, but that I don't think I have an answer, but the degree that I found one close to an answer that works for me is to try and meld my political and my social and my academic commitments as much as possible. In part for sustainability, that way I'm not, engaged in 5 different things, but also to push back against kind of the more functionalist positivist vision of the academy, where that frames that is wrong, that you're supposed to come in as the objective outsider to examine this or that phenomenon or this or that organization. You're supposed to maintain objectivity and distance, and that all, yeah. I mean, I think most of us in this group would not agree with that, but one form of work that we can do to push against that is to explicitly combine those in our work and to say so that those coming up after us, those in university right now, can see examples of how that isn't how we have to do it, that we can combine our academic and personal and social commitments. Also, I wanted to thank all of you. This has been great. I'm looking forward to the book chat. For any of y'all in Brazil, estamos com vocês, e fora Bolsonaro, espero melhor daqui a algumas semanas. But yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rolf. Amazing that you said that. Yes, fora Bolsonaro. And Sergio, would you like final thoughts?
No, thank you. This is really amazing, the capacity of this huge organization of many people, different country, different time zone, and so on. Then I want to really thank you for this kind of organization that is like alpha militant organization. And I think that you sleep not so much, but I know not, I think. then yeah, definitely I want to thank you. This is one future congress. It's really interesting, and then I'm really happy to enjoy doing this talk. And I'm really happy that it seemed to stay in presence, that with the old friend and new friends. Then it was like so interesting, this kind of like Zoom coffee before, that is not so common in the Congress, that you show your presentation 5 minutes and then you go away. And then normally you don't construct a relationship that is the fundamental part of Congress for me. It's not about presentation and so on, but it's like connection. Then thank you. I want to thank you for the organization that. And then I hope that you can sleep in the next day when the Congress finish. and then Maíra, when you come back to Brazil, I will offer a beer.
Thank you so much, Sergio. Thank you for me. Maíra and Ju, please.
Is just to remind everyone to save the chat, because many works were shared there, contacts, save it. And Maíra, she suggests us to taking a photo. What do you think, guys? Can we do? If not, you just switch off a camera, but no, come on.
Sure, I look like I'm telling a ghost story right now with my lighting in my kids' room, but sure, why not?
So everyone who can open their cameras would please, so that we can register this moment. Great, great, great.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you. See you all very soon. Thank you, Sergio, Jessica, Rolf, for your fantastic comments and presentation.
Thank you.
And
Estamos
thank you
juntos.
for
Vamos.
and thank you for all the people who are watching and participating in the chat and say hi, everyone. Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See you soon. I will go to sleep. See you. Have a good day.